So I've got water and I've got power, and I'm going to try to hook those together and put them into our little pump house, which is what I'm going to use as sort of our temporary job site trailer. It'll be here while we demolish the cabin. And so I'm going to do the plumbing for that. I'm going to do a little tiny bit of electrical stuff, which will be kind of, I think I've got a clever way to do that we can use our portable generator or the shore power and kind of intermix between those. So I'm going to run this PEX line over to there to supply it from our water supply pipe here. I'll get this last little bit buried, and then I'll hook up the power, and we'll see if I can take a shower with the shower that my neighbor loaned me. Let's get started and hook up the pump house. I covered the move of this shed in a previous episode, which I'll link above and put in the description below. But I got the shed moved up to here, and here I'm just leveling it, and I cranked it up and I put some feet on it, got it level, and set it on top of some blocks that I excavated some little pads for. So I just basically got it level. This is going to be temporary, so it's not permanent. I got it set up. There was one wall that was really trashed, and so I tore that wall off. It's just T111 siding, and I put new siding on it and painted that with some primer. Nothing perfect, but just wanted to get it so it was airtight and watertight and ready to go. And then I added in a little bit of plumbing to get it prepared, and I then started hooking up the water supply. There was some moldy drywall in there. I pulled that all off. I'm just going to kind of clean that up, and then I'm going to use the interior of this pump house to sort of test some of my interior finishes that we'll do in the cabin, because there's small spaces, but we can actually be in them and use it, and it'll be kind of nice to have. So it's lockable, and we can kind of use this as our job site trailer. I'll give you a quick tour of the inside of that. So I've got a little PEX coming out here, and that's sort of my termination, and I'll connect to that with a valve and run it over. And on this side, you can see I've just roughed in a little toilet flange, and I've got just a simple supply. So I've got a supply line coming up to a toilet output here. And then since I'm not going to run hot water, I just ran both hot and cold. So I'll just hook up our vanity, and I'm going to pull those out of the bathroom in the cabin when we demo that and just set them up in here. We'll just use that temporarily. And I'll crawl underneath and show you the underneath plumbing. So this may be tougher to see, but you can just see I've got one 3-inch line running over there and a little Y going in, a vent stack, and everything drains out. Just temporary. But this is hooked up, and if anybody has any issue with it, we can always just cut it off and terminate it. I went ahead and put the test plug in the toilet flange just so I wouldn't get stuff down in there, and then I went to set about measuring and putting in blocking for a hose bit that I want to hang off the outside of the building. Since this building's kind of central to the job site, it's a good place to have our water line supply for whatever we need to use, whether we're cleaning up from concrete or mixing concrete or cleaning up tools or whatever. It's just a nice place to have, and it'll be on the outside of the building, so it's easy for anybody to get to.
Nothing to discuss more. I get the remedy for this stress, yeah. Double cups and shy. See this night I choose to forget my trouble. I know everybody got things on their mind now, but this time can make it forget them. I get the shy, I get the drinker. If you got mine, I make me link up. Me I go for party, me I go for party. All night I dey sip, I dey smoke, I dey drink or something. See this night in my phone is on silence, I don't wanna hear nothing. Nothing, neither. But this night I choose to forget my trouble for life. I know everybody got things on their mind now, but this time can make it forget them. I get the shy, I get the drinker. If you got mine, I make me link up. Me I come for party, me I come for party. It's just rainy days, I make sure I just let my light shine more. Anytime I feel like this, I remind myself about this time. Big time, we jamming now. Should we dey look for happiness? Yeah, make we dey feel okay. Make we not go that way, no. Say we gon' feel amazing. Say we go feel okay, yeah. I know everybody got things on their mind now.
With the plumbing all sorted and the valve outside, I put in some plugs on the inside at the on these outputs just so that they wouldn't leak, and I was ready to pressurize this shed with some new water.
If you got my make me link up. Me I go for patio. Me I go for patio.
So to bring the water over to the shed, I'm going to need a couple trenches, and I decided to use the tractor for that. I've got a little small bucket that I had to set up on the backhoe, get the implement switched around, get everything lubed up, and get prepared to trench. Gotten pretty used to switching these things around, and it's always a good opportunity to kind of check all the pins, make sure everything's there, lubricate everything, and check for any leaks in the fluid and stuff. And everything looked good. It's been, like I said, it's been a while since I've used it, so I got everything switched around. It's kind of a shell game to move everything in and out of the shop, but I got everything ready to go so that I could start digging. And this is the first time I've used this backhoe specifically for trenching, so it'll be kind of fun to give it a try.
Give thanks, so when me happy, set speed, I carry on now. Big man in town, them shoulda know send me I keep it grounded.
I'm going to basically bring the supply line down to where there will be a vault, and then a little PEX line over from there to a temporary PEX line over to the shed. And so I dug a couple trenches. These aren't super deep. They're probably 2 feet for the supply line and then 16 inches or so for the PEX.
Tell them I'm a winner, yeah. Now pop down, now Joe, now turn in a sinner. Oh, man, still a believer. Even if we get knocked down, we keep the bounce. Now see me front, you got me from a little and I grow. Come on, a winner, yeah. Still a believer. Oh. And after the sunset, me na fed kaja him the defi defend. The world it a turn, so me know that the sun a go rise again one day. I go reach higher heights, even if now it feels like I'm falling. All of me goodness and glory abide by my side, yeah. Knock it, come in, knock we till the work done. Win or lose, a man a winner, and that's for certain. Never take no program, come me and me own done. So me go and chad and chad and chad. Tell them I'm a winner, yeah. Now pop down, now Joe, now turn in a sinner. Oh, man, still a believer. Even if we get knocked down, we keep the bounce. Now see me front, you got me from a little and I grow. Come on, a winner, yeah. Still a believer. Tell them I'm a winner. Oh, 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 oh. Now pop down, now Joe, now turn in a sinner. Yeah, still a believer. Even if we get knocked down, we keep the bounce. Now see me front, you got me from a little and I grow. Come on, a winner. Got me from a little and I broke. I'm on a winner. Ooh, still a believer.
Beautiful morning. I was able to take a shower last night, and I was able to sleep in the cabin for one of the last times before we start tearing it apart. Today I'm going to bury in the trench and get that kind of prepared. We'll be able to drive across this as we're doing our demo and construction and everything, and then that line that over to the little building here is just sort of temporary. The tail end of the main distribution line is actually sort of more permanent, so we'll put in a vault there, and then we'll stub off of that to feed the new cabin. But I'm going to bury this in today, and then I'll start working on the power and show you how I'm going to hook the power up to the shed, which will be kind of, I think I've got a kind of fun way to do that. right, so moving on to the power part of this, I want to be able to run this in several different ways. I want to be able to run it completely off grid. If I just need to jump in and charge a battery on my phone or run a saw for just a second, I can plug in and I can have our little portable generator pack with solar panels on this roof, and that'll keep that thing alive. So that'll be the kind of the base case. And then I may want to plug that pack in if I'm using more power than it can provide, or it's really dark for several days. So I'm going to use this shore power connector, and this was super inexpensive. It was like $17 or something like that on Amazon. And it's essentially a little extension cord, but it's got a sort of a flange mount that you can put it on the outside of the building. So I'm going to put that on the outside of the building. I'm going to cut the cable here, and I'm going to wire it into a little conduit box and give myself a socket. And so that it will kind of replace the functionality of this end of the cable here. And then I'll be able to take my old pump cable, which this used to run the pump, and I abandoned the pump because it burned up, but I've got the cable, so I'm gonna wire this into the building, and I've got a little tiny 14 gauge set of wires for the two lights, and then I've got some 12 gauge wire that runs this GFCI and the little sockets both inside and out. So I'm basically making a giant power strip that's in the shape of a shed. So I'll have this cable that will let me plug the building into either the generator, which can also be plugged into the shore power if it wants, or just into the shore power. So this will be pretty flexible. It's kind of not permanent, and so if the inspector comes or somebody has an issue with it, I'll just unplug it and then it's not connected. And I think it's pretty common for people to have boards in a job site that have a bunch of sockets on them or something like that. So this is essentially that. So I'll get started by mounting this flange, and then I'll kind of wire things up from there. Since the cabin's no longer powered and we're demolishing it, I rated it for a receptacle, got that thing wired up in a sort of an extension box here, and then I set up the orange cables, which are braided, and I tied those into the Romex, which is the 14 and 12 gauge wire that's running around the building. And the little lever lock connectors are really good for mixing these sort of solid core and braided wires together, so I use those. So I think I'm all wired up, and these Wagos are nice, or Wago, however you say it. They're nice. You can look in the back, and you can make sure that your conductors got all the way through to the end and are sort of jammed up against the backstop, which these all are. I've got the extension cord coming in from the mount on the outside, the sort of shore power comes in and goes into this socket, and so that's all it does. So it just acts as an extension to that. And then I took this cable and I wired it up to the two Romex that feed the building. And so then once I've got the shore power hooked up, if I plug this into here, I've powered up the building, or I can plug this into our generator pack. So I'll go ahead and plug in the shore power, use a circuit tester, and then I'll plug these in and do it. And I should note that our shore power has a GFCI out at the temporary power panel, and I'm sort of daisy chaining a second GFCI on there. I looked it up, and it sounds like that's not really a problem, although it can be kind of, they can trip a little bit more easily. And the only advantage to that is it's likely that if it trips, this one will trip first, the one that's close by, and that's just easy for me to fix if I trip it while I'm doing something. Otherwise, I'd have to walk out to the panel and find it. But I guess that's the biggest issue with having two of them, is you don't know which one's tripped. that ended up working out pretty well. We've got power, we've got water in our little home away from home. And as we start yanking stuff out of the cabin and demolishing it, we'll move things into here. Got a little shower hooked up so we can clean up after. And this is gonna be nice. We'll be able to stay in the van and have everything in here that we need while we've got no structure here. And then obviously once we get this new cabin built and everything, we can take it out. So thanks for watching. I'm almost done with the permitting, and so I'll do a little design review and show you what we're gonna be actually building as we get those plans submitted. And then we have to wait about 10 weeks, so that 10 weeks should be a good opportunity for us to demolish the cabin. So thanks a lot for watching, and until I see you next, I'll be out building.